Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate in the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30pm local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania with our DATV Experimenters Night. And I'll just go and shut the door. That's alright. I'm hearing myself with about a half a second delay, which is really really distracting. But anyway, tonight we've got a little bit of difference, a few different things to start off with, and we also have a little bit more of the GNU radio. We don't have too much of the GNU radio. I think people are getting a little bit overwhelmed with GNU radio, but so we'll have a little bit of that at the end. So what I thought I would start off with tonight is a little bit of last weekend, the long weekend. We had the ISS crew from the Russian module transmitting slow scan television, and hello to Anthony, VK7LAG. Hello, welcome to the ATV night. And they were transmitting. It was a series of postcards, which was for the 75th anniversary of the training facility. The training facility that was used for a range of cosmonaut activities, etc., etc. Now, I managed to capture a few of the slow scan television images that came through. This is the first one that I captured, which is a postcard. Now, I used, for those who want to know the details, I used SSTV, which is a Linux SSTV program. I also used GPredict, which is another Linux, that's the satellite prediction program. Enables you to automatically download the KEPs, and update, and then focus in on, in this case, the ISS. And I had a USB to RS-232 dongle hanging off that particular PC, that notebook, and that was controlling the FT847 to do the Doppler shift as the satellite went over. So I was able to get a pretty much perfect, apart from the bottom, which relates to, there should be a black line at the top of this postcard. QSSTV is a bit finicky about picking up an SSTV signal, so I did that manually. Just missed the very start of it. Now, if I go to the second picture, which I picked up on the next pass, there are a couple of good passes. These were, I think, 50 or 60 degrees elevation, which is a fantastic path. Just a little bit of noise there right in the middle, which I'm not quite sure what that was. Might be when it went over. This was only using a ground plane, quarter wave ground plane, 2 meter ground plane on the roof. So this is the Moscow Aviation Institute. It was 75th anniversary of the Moscow Aviation Institute, and some of it says the test pilots selected for the Buran program underwent additional engineering training at the Moscow Aviation Institute, and some of them went on to become astronauts in the future. So this was the 75th anniversary that they were celebrating by transmitting these 12 postcards, and I managed to get 2 of them, number 5 and number 3. And then I became aware that there was an award that was put out by the an Indonesian ISS group, and you could submit your postcard to them, and Anthony said, "Wow, he looks happy to be in space." Yeah, I think you're right there, Anthony. You very rarely see a smiling Russian, but. Yes, it's one of the postcards. So you could submit your one of your postcards or a number of your postcards to the Indonesian Space Explorer website, and they gave you a couple of days later. Came back and gave you a what they call the SSTV Diploma or certificate for successfully receiving these images during the 9th and 10th of June. So well worth a bit of a look, and it follows on from our wonderful presentation by Mike VK7DMH on satellites and the like. So. But anyway, worth a bit of a look when you actually next time it comes around. These come around probably every 3 or 4 months. There's something that's being commemorated at in space, either Russian or American, and they run SSTV stations from the ISS. So well worth a bit of a look. So now another website that I came across, I happened to call in. There was a Bob who is M0DDK called in on DMR on Talk Group 3807, I think it was, which is what I normally listen to, and we had a bit of a chat. And he talked about some very nice mag loop antennas kits that this guy, who is G4TPH, has been developing over the years, and you can actually buy a kit which is a remotely tuned mag loop. There's the kit there, or a manually tuned mag loop. And these kits, very interesting construction method, because basically he's got little 3D printed connection points here that screw together. So that's all these elements here. and then it heads into where the capacitor and the tuning capacitor and the remote control and everything in the box. They cover HF. I think it's hang on, there it was there. Hang on, let me go back a bit. 40 through 15 metres. Both tune all bands from 40 to 15 metres. Will handle 100 watts, 50 watts CW or 35 watts in the data modes, and covers 12 metres and 10 metres with 7 rails. So I think you take out a couple of rails and shrink the loop. But anyway, G4 TPH, so and very easy to remember, g4tph.com, and he just an interesting little mag loop kit that Bob M0DDK was talking about. So it's just a bit of a look. And I'll just do a bit of a plug for Ham Radio DX. VK7HH channel. I got the T-shirt the other day, so thank you very much to Hayden for the T-shirt. And now let me go. What we're going to cover. Let me go out a little bit here. What we're going to cover. This arrived in the mail a few days ago. This is low key. This is the Journal of the VKQRP Club. It comes out every 2 months. I think every 2 months. And if you're into home brewing and QRP radio, this is fantastic. And there's an excellent little article. I hope Ben is hopefully watching tonight on the streaming, because there's an article in here by Gary on a end-fed half-wave antenna for QRP, where he puts this is one of those wonderful little banana plug arrangements that go from a BNC to a banana plug, and what he's been able to do is put the ballon and the capacitor basically in the little box, and everything. So for those who haven't seen one of these, a little bit of a presentation from the president, and what's going on in the QRP world, a bit of club news, the who's new in the zoo, a little bit of low-key history from Don Callow as well. In December 1983 was when the VKQRP Club was created. And interesting, issue 9, Ray Taylor, VK7 Victor, who's unfortunately silent key, took over as editor, and goes through a few of the highlights as we go through. The club awards manager, which is Gary Cottle, VK2 GAZ, is retiring, so they're looking for a club contest manager. The club awards, which is the milliwatts per kilometre award, which is usually it's usually there's a wonderful little milliwatts per kilometre award logo, which is the it's not the size of the dog, it's the bark of the dog. And it goes on. There are a number of sections: 10 milliwatts, 100 kilometres, etc., and all the way down to 5 watts, up to 5 watts, and 10,000 kilometres. So you can put in for the various awards. The 10-day QSO award, QRP hours contest, which was back in April, and the results of that. And who was in there now? Let's have a look. Tony, VK7 LTD, looks like he put in a bit of a showing for the contest. Now Peter Parker, VK3YE, who's a regular contributor, he activated VK5 WAT, which is the club station of the VKQRP club. and that's all about him activating it. The John Moyle, which again is VK3YE, and one of his characteristics, little 5-watt transmitters, VXO transmitters, in what looks like a lunchbox. So here we go. Broadcast receiver, modified broadcast receiver, antenna tuning unit, key, transmitter, his antenna wire, and a squid pole. End-fed half-wave for portable QRP operation by Gary Cottle, VK2GOZ, and you can see that picture on the front. He's put a nice little bit of heat shrink around it to protect it. Nick Chandler, who is VK7 Whiskey, put in HF switch box, and his article about the switch box. Portable squid pole mounting kit by Tony Morris, VK3 CTM, so able to independently mount. The 50-year project, the bow tie antenna for 20 metres. So we're talking about 12 feet here, and 12 feet. So the bow tie, a 24-foot bow tie for 20 metres, but directional, would be directional. Member classifieds, Chris VK1 CT's crossword, which he puts in each time. The frequencies and nets, and member email addresses. And then on the back here is Chris here has gone off to one of the nature parks in VK1 where he lives, and it shows his setup. Very nice little what looks like a camera bag that he keeps his FT817 in, and a little paddle, etc. So squid pole with end-fed antenna supported by a 6-metre squid pole tied to a tree. So there you go. So that's Low Key magazine. Now that's the here and now. I'm going to give you a bit of a blast from the past, which I came across almost by accident, actually. This is the very first. This is a reprint. This is actually a reprint because you'll notice it's in a much smaller format. But this is a reprint of the very first copy of back in April 1939. So we're just at the beginning of, almost at the beginning of World War II. Radio and Hobbies in Australia, which ended up going to become Television Radio and Hobbies, and then became Electronics Australia. And well, the rest is history. But this is a little bit of a I think a reprint that they did, and absolutely fascinating looking through this. I'm not going to go all the way through, but I was just going to point out a few key names in here. We've got the editor, who is A.G. Hall. We've got the technical editor, who is one Mr. John Moyle. So looking very distinguished with a pipe there. If we turn over the page, we've got Sir Ernest Fisk of AWA fame, and a range of other people who all contribute to the magazine. This was not only radio. There was an awful lot of radio in here, but it was a lot of other things. This is a disc transcription device, recording device. You can see there's variable selectivity in theory and practice. An elementary course in radio for beginners. A bit about light, the rainbow around your shoulder. So this is light. Bit about early plastics and insulators. And then if we whiz through, there's some wonderful advertising in here as well. But whiz through, I noticed, and in 1939, ultra high frequencies, Americans heard on 11 metres. Ultra high stations heard recently. If we go to the back here, testing your loudspeaker, we've got the Langford Guitar School course. And the one I wanted to get to, capture that moment. This is macro photography. So they had photography in here. There's a picture of the moon, a bit about Kodak and the process, and there was a wonderful little article about magic. So a whole lot of magic tricks and how to actually do them. So repairing faulty gas taps, all sorts of things. Air guns and rifles, so model airplanes and all sorts of things. And here we go, make extra money in your spare time with this wonderful tested tool chest. So that's Radio and Hobbies of April 1939, which is the very first edition. Now, another thing that I found on my in my travels, you can tell I'm cleaning out things right at the moment, bit like Larry. Larry's cleaning some things out. This is, and you'll notice if I turn it over, this is a Radio Shack Ohms law calculator and parallel resistance calculator. And so there's a whole lot of scales on here, and if you line up two resistors, we can line up, here we go, 250 ohms and 500 ohms, and then if we read off the equivalent resistance here, it's about 168 ohms. So you can a whole lot of scales here that you can line up, and then you can read off the equivalent resistance of parallel resistance calculator. If you turn it over, Ohm's law calculator, including power here as well. So you choose the particular scale that you've got, and the various parts, the various elements that you've got here, which is, if you've got the volts and the amps, you can line up the volts and the amps and then read off on the other scale. So if we line up, what is it, 2 amps and 100 volts, then we've got 50 ohms, and we've also got, if we read off this one, what is it, 205, and we've got, where do we read off watts? Up here. We read off 200 and, what is it, 200, oh no, it's at the top. it's the volts at 102, we read off up here at 200 watts. 100 volts, 2 amps, 200 watts. Amps 2, so it's, you go from this scale here to this scale here at 2 amps is, and read off the number of watts, which is 200 watts. So there you go. And it's all to do with Radio Shack, and I absolutely love that the price is still on here, and it was 99 cents, and that was probably when you were charged 99 cents. So so Radio Shack Ohm's law calculator, I suspect of the 1980s, 1970s, 1980s. There's not actually a date on there, but it's Radio Shack. So just thought I'd share that with you. Find a few interesting little items as I'm cleaning things out. So of my some of my old man's who's ex VK5 TW. So I'm sure that there will be more things that I'll come across in the fullness of time. So there you go. Now what I was going to do was now finish off with just a little bit more on GNU Radio Companion. I can hear you all groan. What we've got here is something that hopefully is familiar to you, which is something we looked at last time, which was it's in effect a SSB simulator. You've got a file source, which again is actually an audio recording, an actual recording, audio recording from off air, you've got a signal source, you multiply them together, so you actually mix them together. Think about that as a mixer. There isn't actually a mixer you can use here, but there is certainly a multiplier, a mathematical multiplier. It heads off and it gives us an oscillograph here. I'm actually not sure why this doesn't work, but I haven't quite worked out why that doesn't work yet, but I'll work on that one. And the output also goes off through a low-pass filter. This is also provides us with decimation, so it's a divide by 2. So this sample rate up here of 96 kilosamples per second is decimated by 2, which means it comes down to 48 kilosamples per second, which matches our audio sync or our sound file rate here. So that gets over the issue of not having to feed 96k into a 48k sample rate sound card. We mix that signal here. This is a low-pass filter, which is a cut-off frequency of 1.5k, so anything below 1.5k is allowed through. Really steep transition of 300 Hertz. We then add a frequency to that of 48k and mix that together. We do a conversion because these are blue, which means these are complex inputs. And you'll notice that all the blues go to blues and all the oranges here go to oranges, and that all that does is convert a complex input to a float input. So this is this input contains both the I and Q. This input contains a real number out the other side. We've got a multiply constant, which is an ability to control the flow here into the audio sync, which is effectively a volume control. So that's how we create a volume control with the within GNU Radio Companion. So if we run that flow graph, I'll demonstrate the ability to what we've got here. This particular signal source down here enables us to vary the passband, and then there is some volumes and some other bits and pieces here. The top control is volume, and you can hear a bit of duck talk. There we go. This enables us to tune, so it changes this particular oscillator just slightly, enables us to tune it there, and then this passband enables us to control this oscillator here. So if this is at 15, the low pass filter is cut off at 1500, so what we're looking at is somewhere around 1500. Now, this is, again, this is complex, so you get a positive and a negative frequency. Go back to about 1500. You're starting to hear a bit more like duck talk. Let's open the passband up, and surprise, surprise, let's turn that up.
K0 Fox X-ray, day in Hawaii?
Yes, Bob, Colorado.
That's a Bob? Okay, stand by, copy to Colorado, is a Bravo, Ocean Bravo. Again, phonetically, please. Sierra, Oscar, November?
Now we should actually have an oscillograph here of this frequency, and I'm not quite sure why that's not working, and I'll work that out and I'll let you know why that's not working. But anyway, that was the demonstration of SSB simulated radio. The next one that we did was we went into a broadcast receiver. Now again, this was all using the RTL-SDR. So the RTL-SDR, this is actually using the block that enables you to interface to the RTL-SDR, and we went through last time making sure the driver was there, and then setting up this block, and then we had a FM decode block originally. which was a little bit tricky to tune, and the selectivity of it wasn't that great. When I had a look at what was available to us in FM decoders, there was actually a block called a wideband FM receiver block. So I thought, okay, well, given broadcast FM is considered to be wideband FM, you're talking about a much greater amount of the spectrum being used. I thought, okay, we'll drop in one of those blocks. We set it up so that the quadrature rate matches the sample rate over here. The audio decimation, because that sample rate is 960K, we need to be able to get down to our 48K for the sound card. So our audio decimation rate we set at divide by 20. So if we divide 960 by 20, you end up with 48, which is fantastic. You've got a volume control here, and then what I've done is stuck an oscillograph on here, and I've also stuck a Constellation sync on here, which we used back when I was explaining I and Q. So if we run this now, yep, I think that should be all okay. Okay, so we've defaulted to 92.9, which is Triple J. We've got the ability to do some tuning here, and I'll just to prove that we'll go up in frequency, go up to 93.9, and okay, there's Classic FM, ABC Classic FM, and we see the oscillograph here. And if we scroll down a little bit here, we actually see the constellation diagram. Now that's interesting. Why is that a square? Why is that? You can see that's in all four quadrants. So what we've got is our in-phase axis and our quadrature axis. So what it's telling you, and you can notice that's going in an anti-clockwise direction, so that's telling us something as well. And let's pull the gain down a little bit here. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's being overdriven. So if we pull the gain down, that's more like what I'd expect. Is a circle. This is in its generation. It's actually creating both positive and negative frequency, amplitude and phase, and that's represented by this constellation diagram. You can see it's auto scaling these axes. But anyway, the wideband FM signal, wideband FM receive module is much better at receiving and much more selective than just the FM demodulator. If we go back down, we can see we're going back to Triple J, and that's what I'd expect. That's interesting with that RF gain. You can see I can turn the RF gain all the way up on Triple J, and it doesn't overload at all and go to the rectangle. Interesting. Anyway, so okay, that's our FM broadcast receiver. Now let's take it to the next level, slightly more relevant to amateur radio. So what we've got is a amateur radio 2 meter FM receiver. So I've gone back to using the narrowband FM receive because we use much less of the spectrum than the commercials use. Set this up again. It's an RTL-SDR. It goes into the narrowband FM receive block. The audio rate you set as an output of 48K, so you don't have to decimate in this particular block. which is fantastic. The quadrature rate matches the sample rate here at that's coming out of the RTL-SDR. There's a bit of the pre-emphasis, which is set to 75 microseconds, and maximum deviation that this block has got to deal with, I've set at 16k. Now I've put a few controls on this so you can play with that. I also have an output going to an oscillograph so we can see it, and that oscillograph is centered on the particular tuned frequency that we've got over here. Now I've tuned it, I've set the default frequency on here to 146,700, which is a repeater 2, so that we can actually see, sorry to our members out there. So I've got a handheld here on 2 meters on the repeater output. I'll turn the volume up a little bit so you can actually hear it. This is the tuning one. It's set to 146,700. RF gain set to 50, and deviations at 16 kilohertz. So that's probably going to be okay. Now, this is a good example of the detail. This is VK7 Tango Whiskey on repeater 2, just doing a demonstration on DATV. You can see the delay. There's a couple of seconds processing delay in here for me to be able to. Once I push the talk button, which I'm pushing now, you can see there's a couple of seconds of delay just in there before it actually gets a signal, and there's a bit of feedback as well. So you can hear the decoded voice coming through every so often. So this is VK7TW just signing off. So that's an amateur radio application with GNU Radio. So you can actually do amateur radio, and you can really do radio with GNU Radio Companion. It's not just a digital signal processing toolkit. So that's and you can play with the deviation. You can play with the RF gain. There are a couple of other things you can play with in here that you can come up with controls for. But anyway, that's a amateur. We'll finish with an amateur radio application of GNU Radio. And what I'm hoping to do is next time, I'm actually been working on a DVB-T demodulator. So this is amateur. Well, this is your standard. And thank you, Muzz. Yeah. Can we tune into something else, please? Yes. Okay. Come on, you get used to listening to noise in during contests, and you hear your call sign coming out of the noise and all of that sort of stuff. Hi. So I'm in the process of working on a DVB-T demodulator, which will actually bring up the image that will be transmitting as part of DATV. So that's the next project that I'm working on. We might have it for next time, but we'll certainly have some GNU Radio sessions coming up in the not too distant future. So and show you some of the fantastic stuff that amateurs are actually doing out there with GNU Radio. About every couple of months, GNU Radio holds a forum, a virtual online forum, which is for amateurs to be involved with things that they are doing in the amateur radio space using GNU Radio. So yeah, that's very interesting to look at the proceedings of those gatherings. They really are fairly inspirational and demonstrate what you can do with GNU Radio Companion. So just a fantastic little toolkit, and I'm definitely warming to it right at the moment, especially with the filter capability of it. So looking at doing some things in the 630 metre space through GNU Radio. So yeah, anyway, there you go. That's next week we'll have Steve VK7OO with a tribute to his amateur radio mother. We also will have this very interesting little thing, which you, for those who know about Beehives, this is a little bit of electronics which involves this, and this is a temperature and humidity sensor, which you can walk up to your beehive and find out what the temperature and the humidity is within the hive. And there are a couple of other very interesting bits of electronics that to do with beehives that we'll have on next week. So there you go. Now, reminder, always finish off with what our presentation nights are coming up. Wednesday the 14th. Now, it is the second Wednesday night, which is our next presentation night. It is not the first Wednesday night in July. It's the second. It will be presented by Barry McCann, who is OAM, and it will be a presentation about the Tasmania-wide Tasmaritime Radio Network, and then we will retire to their facility, which is next door, and they'll show us the operations room and the wonderful little museum, Maritime Radio Museum, that they have next door. So that's July the 14th from 7:30 p.m. Now, our August presentation night is all about contesting. We'll have Murray, we'll have Martin, so got the M right. We'll have Martin VK7GN, who will give us a talk on HF contesting, and Richard VK7ZBX on VHF and above contesting. And that is just a couple of weeks before the Remembrance Day contest. So we hope to put in another excellent showing, VK7 showing in the Remembrance Day contest. And then in September we have, which is Wednesday the 1st of September, is the Tas Government Radio Network by Andrew VK7 Alpha Juliet. So there you go. And October, giving you a bit of a heads up here, October is military radios presentation by a couple of people. That's probably going to be on a Sunday and include a barbecue, so that we can, Peter and Kim can actually show you some military antennas as well. We can actually get them working and actually operate the radios out in the compound. So that's the presentation nights coming up. Now, our videos for our RF viewers tonight. The very first one, I'll just read: the British engineer who accidentally took off in a fighter jet, which is all about Taffy Holden's lightning flight. Fascinating little story. We've got Vertasium, risking my life to settle a physics debate about going quicker than the wind that is pushing you along, and how is that possible? The problem with time zones and time, if you're a computer programmer, that's from Computer File, and another one from Computer File, which is the worst typo I ever made. So one of those stories I think a lot of us can relate to. So anyway, we'll get underway with those in a sec for our RF viewers. Anyway, this is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our DATV Experimenters Night. And thank you to Hayden from Ham Radio DX, VK7HH, who sent through a very nice T-shirt, and it fits perfectly, Hayden. So good stuff. Anyway, that's our DATV night, and hope you have a good week. We're going into dark mofo down here. In fact, I drove through Hobart tonight to get here, and everything was painted red. So with light, that is. So hoping to get to a few things in dark mofo over the next few days. Anyway, we'll see you next week, and we'll have a good week and 73, and we'll catch you next time round. Cheers.